By November of 1776, Washington is on the run through New Jersey. Roads fill with refugees. Soldiers desert in droves.
He's lost 9,000 troops, either to wounds or death or desertion. A total debacle.
In the dismal closing days of 1776, the nation and its army tottered at the brink of disintegration. Somehow, George Washington would have to transform 2,000 demoralized stragglers into a potent military force. If he should fail, his country would die, and history would remember him as the general who lost America's independence. Long Island, Kips Bay, New York City, New Jersey. George Washington had brought his new nation little more than a string of humiliating losses and chaotic retreats. Winter offered a small reprieve.
The British are typical Europeans when it comes to fighting in the winter. When winter comes, you put your troops under cover and you wait till spring. And when the British got across New Jersey, they stopped and went into winter quarters. And Washington now has an opportunity.
On December 24th, 1776, Washington brooded over his opportunity. His soldiers' enlistments would expire in 1 week. Washington mobilized his troops on Christmas night. His target was a Hessian brigade quartered at Trenton, New Jersey, across the Delaware River from the American encampment. The river itself would prove an imposing obstacle, nearly 1,000 feet across, swollen by storms and thick with hunks of ice.
Of course, it was very dark, bad weather, so the troops are miserable. The river level is rising, ice is forming. It's very difficult, very dangerous.
The operation drags. Washington is behind schedule, his advantage of surprise in jeopardy. The 8-mile night march to Trenton is another slow, agonizing ordeal.
The legend that they were marching with bare feet and leaving bloody footprints in the snow is true.
The men know they can't stop to rest, because if they do, they'll freeze to death. And 2 of them did.
The morning dawns, bright and cold. Against all odds, the barefoot army reaches Trenton before 8 a.m. Washington's announcement of their arrival is short and to the point. After scattering the German defenders with artillery fire, the Americans plunge forward, bayonets bared. Savage hand-to-hand combat erupts in the streets of Trenton. But the surprised Hessians are overmatched. It ends almost as quickly as it began. More than 100 Germans are killed or wounded and nearly 1,000 captured. Washington loses just 6 men. It was his first battlefield victory, but he had little time to celebrate. His army was about to disband.
All of their enlistments were expired, and he saw an opportunity created by Trenton to make another serious blow against the British Army, but he didn't have time because his troops were literally packing their bags.
I cannot spare you.
Washington appeared before his men and appealed to them personally to stay and save America's revolution. His words were simple and heartfelt. "We know not how to spare you," he told them. "If you will stay 1 month longer, you will render service to the cause of liberty and to your country."
Now, who is with me?
Perhaps it was his compelling appeal, or maybe his offer of a $10 bonus. One by one, the majority of soldiers stepped forward. Washington had bought his young nation 4 more weeks. The $10 soldiers would earn their pay. 8,000 redcoats led by General Cornwallis were closing in. Cornwallis stationed several hundred men at Princeton, then moved into Trenton, where he could trap Washington against the Delaware River, or so he thought.
Washington is not going to leave his army in that tight spot. He is going to build up his campfires. He's going to leave troops behind to make noise and to feed those campfires, but he's going to take most of his troops and he's going to move around Cornwallis's left flank, and he's going to put them on the road to Princeton.
The last rebel troops stoke their fires, then slip away to Princeton. When the redcoats attack at dawn, all they have to crush are dying embers. Meanwhile, General Washington's men are 12 miles away, exchanging fire with the British regiments at Princeton. The redcoats have taken protected positions, and their musket volleys tear gaping holes in the American lines. When the British mount a charge, the American line begins to break apart.
Things are in disarray. Washington personally comes forward and takes control of the battle. He becomes a battle leader, and at one point rides out on his horse between the two lines, who are separated by no more distance than a football field.
One of his aides won't look at him when the volleys come. He looks down at the ground, fearful that Washington will die right in front of him.
As he had at Kips Bay, Washington rides into a hail of bullets. This time, however, his soldiers are inspired to follow. I shall never forget what I felt, one officer recalled, when I saw him with 1,000 deaths flying around him. I thought not of myself. The action at Princeton would end in a decisive American victory, the second in little more than a week.